Hi, everybody. This is Megumi again for the International Framework for Environmental Protection, Lecture 5. Today, I'll speak about the ocean contamination by the plastic waste and oil spill. So let's get started. The keywords for today are plastic, polymers. Polymers are the compounds for the plastic, and oil spill. The cause of the oil spill is always petroleum. So we'll study about these polymers and petroleum and pollution in the ocean. This is the famous picture of Hiroshige. And this is not the original one. You can see the details here are plastic garbages. So this is almost true. So I'm not joking. Let's see here. This is the pollution of the plastic in the ocean. This is from Exxon, 2014. So 8 years ago. But even 8 years ago, the pollution was very serious, even in that year. And these are the figure, the map indicating that the plastic are contaminating the ocean. Each particle of the plastic has the size of 1.01 to 4.75 millimeters. So this very strong red is between 100,000 to 1 million tons of plastic garbage, up to this size, fluctuating. And if it is microscopic, you cannot note here. And this red is between 10,000 to 100,000 tons of plastic, this area, this area, this area. And the orange is between 1,000 and 10,000 tons of plastic garbage, fluctuating. The green one, the light green is between 100 to 1,000 tons, and the green and a little bit strong green is between 1 to 10,000 tons of the garbages. So Erickson says that more than 5 trillion plastic pieces weighing over 250,000 tons afloat at sea at this moment, 2014. So it's a very serious problem. The water is plastics. We see plastics all around our life. So plastics are polymers, and polymers are chains of simple organic chemicals that are said monomers, linked together in long chains. So these strong chain molecules are comprising mainly carbon and hydrogen, tough enough for decomposition, very tough. That's why PET bottle and plastic garbages doesn't decompose. It will last for more than 400 years, thousand years to decompose. And plastic materials are made of polymeric macromolecules. And macromolecules are monomers. The monomers are synthesized in refineries from oil. The linking of the monomers in the polymer chain is done inside polymerization reactors until the desirable average molecular weight is achieved for the polymer. So different kinds of polymers are used in our daily life. And this is the polyethylene, PE. This is used as a lid of a tupper. You use a lot of tupper, the container that we put into the refrigerator. And in case of PE, polyethylene, 1,000 atoms of carbon are linked to 2,000 atoms of hydrogen, just like this. Carbon and carbon are linked together, and each carbon is linked to hydrogen atom, like this. And for example, if N, this N is 1,000, it means that this molecule is a polyethylene. And you're changing this part that is in yellow, this hydrogen, to another atoms, for example, chloride or another kind of chemicals. You can have another kind of polymers. Okay, and this is the polyethylene material. And we have other kind of polymers. For example, PP is polypropylene. This replacing CH3 in the lower right H. Instead of H, you put CH3 here, and you make polypropylene. And also, if you replace Cl, chlorine, you will get PVC, polyvinyl chloride. And so on and so on. And PVCPS is polystyrene, PC is polycarbonate, PBT is polybutylene terephthalate, PT is polyethylene terephthalate. This is very much used for the PET bottles that we use for drinking mineral water, Coca-Cola, and so on. And others you have ABS, PA, POM, PMMA, PPS, and so on and so on. They are used for the materials for the automobiles, vehicles, trains, aircraft, and so on. And plastic is choking life in the deepest oceans and on the highest mountains, and plastic pollution is everywhere. In the rain, our food, our drinking water, even in the human placenta. It's poisoning us and all life on Earth. And plastic is toxic from the moment production begins. It's made from the same dirty fossil fuels that are causing the climate crisis. And it doesn't decompose, as I said. Plastic bottle breaks down into tiny invisible pieces that can travel around the world through water and air, contaminating all life on Earth. Even rain is polluted with plastic. Scientists in the United States found that rain is flooding protected national parks with 1,000 tons of microplastics every year. That's the equivalent of up to 300 million plastic bottles. This is a planetary emergency, and we need an urgent coordinated global response. That's why more than 100 countries are calling for a global treaty that could bring an end to the throwaway plastic culture and transition the world into a future that protects people, wildlife, and our climate. I got this letter from AVAAZ on 2022, this year, last month in January. So now let's see about these startling facts about plastics in the ocean. In which items plastics are commonly found? Plastics is an inexpensive, durable material found in many items that we use daily, including some facial cleanser, toothpastes, and clothes, health and beauty products, and cell phones. How long does it take to decompose? As I said, plastic has been around for a little over 100 years, but studies show that plastic beverage bottles, for example, will take more than 400 years to decompose. This means that first plastic bottle that was ever produced is still around. And it is still produced every day. Plastics biodegrade in the ocean. Most commonly used plastics never fully degrade in water. If they are less than 5 millimeters, about the width of a pencil, these pieces are considered microplastics, which can be very harmful to the ocean and marine life. And startling facts about plastics in the ocean, continuation. What is the amount of garbage dumped into the ocean? An estimated 5 million to 13 million metric tons of plastics flows from the land and enters the ocean each year. This is equivalent to emptying a garbage truck into the ocean every minute. And how about the weight of plastic compared to weight of fish in the ocean? In its 2016 report, The New Plastic Economy, Rethinking the Future of Plastic, the World Economic Forum estimated that by 2050, there will be more plastics than fish by weight. It's astonishing figure. And what percent was recycled? According to journal Science Advances, only 9% of plastics ever produced have been recycled. It's so important to recycle everything that we are using. It is recyclable. And if you do not recycle and throw away, it will pollute the ocean. It's very simple. Just recycle. And continuing, according to peer-reviewed journal Science Advances, the accumulation of plastic waste is about 12 billion metric tons. And this amount of plastics will be in landfills or in natural environment if current plastic production and waste management trend continues. And the global plastic production in the next 20 years, according to the World Economic Forum in its report, The New Plastic Economy, Rethinking the Future of Plastics, predicted that plastic production will double in the next 20 years. So the plastic garbage will also double or triplicate. Alternative to single-use plastics. We can do something for that. Reusable bags, stainless steel, and even biodegradable materials are among the alternative use. Instead of using PET bottle, you can use your own My bottle, washing and using every day. So this is also a plastic toy of a baby. This kind of garbage is everywhere. So dangerous. Now let's see about the plastics by the number. Some key facts. Half of all plastics ever manufactured have been made in the last 15 years. And production increased exponentially from 2.3 million tons in 1950 to 448 million tons by 2015. And production is expected to double by 2050. Every year, about 8 million tons of plastic waste escapes into the oceans from coastal nations. That's the equivalent of setting 5 garbage bags full of trash on every foot of coastline around the world. Plastics often contain additives, making them stronger, more flexible, and durable, and colorful. But many of these additives can extend the life of products if they become litter, with some estimates ranging to at least 400 years to break down. It's too much because human lifetime is 80 years or 90 years, depending on the country. There are countries with the lifetime of 40 years. So this is 10 times the time of lifetime of a human. And which types of plastics are used in our daily life? We have these kind of plastics, as we saw in the previous slide: PET, HDP, PVC, LDPE, PP, PS, and other. PET is clear tough plastic. For example, water bottles, juice, soft drink, this kind. And this one is HDPE. Common white or colored plastics such as milk and shampoo bottles. PVC, this kind. Hard, rigid, or thick film, clear and colored plastics. LDPE, this kind. Soft, flexible plastic, just for example, plastic shopping bags and soft bottles. PP, this. Hard, flexible packaging such as microwaveware, takeaway containers. PS, rigid, brittle plastic such as small tubs and margarine butter containers. Other. All other upcoming plastic from materials development, including nylon, ABS, and acrylic. Mouse, for example. So plastic pollution is killing plankton. How the loss of these species threatens the oceans. And what is plankton and why is it important? Well, some plankton are phytoplankton and get their energy from photosynthesis. Algae and photosynthetic forms of bacteria are more common types of phytoplankton. And the bigger one is the zooplankton. Zooplankton are the animal form of plankton and may include small organisms as well as juveniles of non-plankton species, that spend a portion of their early life drifting the ocean. And phytoplankton are often food for zooplankton. And zooplankton then feed a multitude of marine creatures, sea stars, fish, squid, and even whales feast on zooplankton as their main food source. Without plankton, all of these creatures would be under threat of starvation. So it's imperative that plankton are preserved from the man-made threats they are currently facing. They eat each time the microplastics. So some zooplanktons are eating plastics. Recently, scientists observed some species of zooplankton actually eating plastics. This discovery is really bad news for not just plankton, but the massive amount of life they also support. It bioaccumulates. Microplastics, tiny pieces of plastics that have broken up, resemble the food of zooplankton and thus becomes enticing to a hungry little crustacean. And why is it bad for the building blocks of all other ocean life to be ingesting plastic? In short, plastics introduce a variety of toxic chemicals into their host, whether these be chemicals stemming directly from the plastic composition itself, like BPA, or a toxin that attached to the plastic while it spent time floating in a marine environment, like DDT. Anything that eats plastic stands to be impacted by the toxins. Not good for any ocean life. And it will reach the humans. It's known that within the female stool, it is common to detect microplastics nowadays. Everybody have microplastics in your body. The main problem with bags is that they are very often eaten by all forms of marine life. Dr. Sue Kinsey says, marine creatures mistake floating bags as jellyfish, a staple food for many, and then slowly starve as the plastic fails to break down and clogs up their digestive system. These marine animals are dying because of our plastic trash. The plastic debris that many of them ingested or became entangled is still visible long after their death. Sadly, an overwhelming amount of plastic pollution isn't even visible to the human eye, with much of the pollution occurring out at sea or on a microscopic level. Like many other marine animals, sea turtles mistake plastic waste for a viable food source, sometimes causing blockages in their digestive system. They think that this is a kind of weed, so they eat them. Though the declining sea turtle populations in the oceans are due to a variety of factors, most all of which involve human exploitation. But plastic pollution plays also a significant role. These stellar sea lions are dying because of our plastic trash. In fact, plastic packing bans and rubber bans continue to deeply impact the stellar sea lion population. An 8-year study in Southeast Alaska and British Columbia documented 388 sea lions entangled in plastic debris. These plastic packing bands and rubber bands can become so embedded in the animal that it can lead to severe infection and death. So these kind of plastic bands are the bands that put together 6 beer cans or 6 soft drink cans so that the people can carry it easily. And after using, they throw away. If the people are in the beach, they throw into the ocean. This is the seabird. These marine birds are dying because of our plastic trash. So many plastic garbage in its stomach. Plastic pollution leads to the death of millions of marine bird species each year. Arguably more so than other birds, the Laysan Albatross has been deeply impacted by plastic debris through their hunting techniques. When the albatross dives into the ocean to catch fish, squid, or other food, they use their beak to skim the surface, picking up plastic along the way. Shockingly, an estimated 98% of albatross studied are found having ingested some kind of plastic debris. Once the plastic has been ingested, it causes an obstruction in the digestive tract and can puncture internal organs. So dangerous. Fishes are contaminated with plastic trash also. Fish, along with pretty much any marine mammal that brings in water through its gills, are increasingly at risk to microscopic plastic debris. A study performed at the University of Exeter, United Kingdom, suggested that microscopic marine debris could take up to 6 times as long for the animal to rid themselves of in comparison to ingesting the debris orally. Of course, plastic pollution deeply impacts species of fish, but unlike other animals on our list, this is one animal that's also commonly eaten by humans. A number of studies suggest that the fish humans continue to consume have at one time or another ingested plastic microfibers, including brown trout, sea squall, and perch. Whales are dying because of our plastic trash. Like other marine mammals, whales often mistake marine debris for a potential food source. In some species, similar to that of the albatross, the whale's mouth is so large it unknowingly picks up plastic debris, a technique observed in baleen whales. They do not choose the food, the kind of fish. Necropsies performed after numerous whale strandings saw an increase in the amount of plastic debris found. What do sea turtles eat? Unfortunately, plastic bags, as we saw. The outlook for turtles that eat plastic is bleak. For 22% ingesting just one plastic item can be a death sentence. Sharp plastics can rupture internal organs, and bags can cause intestinal blockages, leaving turtles unable to feed, resulting in starvation. Even if they survive, consuming plastic can make turtles unnaturally buoyant, which can stunt their growth and lead to slow reproduction rates. So now, how plastics move around the world? Most of the plastic trash in the oceans, Earth's last sink, flows from land. Trash is also carried to sea by major rivers, which act as conveyor belts, picking up more and more trash as they move downstream. Once at sea, much of the plastic trash remains in coastal waters. But once caught up in ocean currents, it can be transported around the world. And we have also the problem of microplastics and microfibers. Once at sea, sunlight, wind, and wave action break down plastic waste into small particles, often less than 1/5 of an inch across. These so-called microplastics are spread throughout the water column and have been found in every corner of the globe, from Mount Everest, the highest peak, to the Mariana Trench, the deepest trough. Microplastics are breaking down further into smaller and smaller pieces, invisible pieces. Plastic microfibers, meanwhile, have been found in municipal drinking water systems and drifting through the air. And they are very harmful to the wildlife. Millions of animals are killed by plastics every year, from birds to fish to other marine organisms. Nearly 700 species, including endangered ones, are known to have been affected by plastics. Nearly every species of seabird eat plastics. Most of the deaths to animals are caused by entanglement or starvation. Seals, whales, turtles, and other animals are strangled by abandoned fishing gear or discarded six-pack rings. Microplastics have been found in more than 100 aquatic species, including fish, shrimp, and mussels destined for our dinner plates. In many cases, these tiny bits pass through the digestive system and are expelled without consequence. But plastics have also been found to have blocked digestive tracts or pierced the organs, causing death. Stomachs so packed with plastics reduce the urge to eat, causing starvation, as we saw before. And once in the ocean, it is difficult, if not impossible, to retrieve plastic waste. Mechanical systems such as Mr. Trash Whale, a little interceptor in Maryland's Baltimore Harbor, can be effective at picking up large pieces of plastic, such as foam cups and food containers from inland waters. But once plastics break down into microplastics and drift throughout the water column in the open ocean, they are virtually impossible to recover. I suggest that you take a look at this video, Mr. Trash Whale. How does it work? Now, let's see about the solution for that problem. The solution is to prevent plastic waste from entering rivers and seas in the first place, many scientists and conservationists say. This could be accomplished with improved waste management systems and recycling, better product design that takes into account the short life of disposable packaging, and reduction in manufacturing of unnecessary single-use plastics. In our lecture at the beginning of this month, we saw a very nice video about this, recycling and making sunglasses with the recycled ocean plastic. It was very nice business. So let's see more about the solution. Reduce your own plastic waste. Reuse. Bring your own reusable shopping and produce bags to markets. And avoid using single-use plastic bags. You use only once and throw away. Refuse. Refuse straws. It's as simple as adding "no straw, please" when requesting beverages at restaurants or cafes. Remove, recycle, and rally. We all have to speak out and keep pushing for a world safe from plastic. And this is the video of United Nations. Plastic, both a wonderful invention and a scourge on our planet. Over 300 million tons is produced every year. Most is never recycled and remains on our land and in our seas forever. The damage to all creatures who depend on the ocean for their food, from birds to us. So this is another very good video. 21st Century, episode 126. This is an adaptation from the original documentary, A Plastic Ocean by the Plastic Oceans Foundation script. For international law, we have Basel Convention. This Basel Convention on the control of transboundary movements of hazardous waste and their disposal was signed in March 2006. In 167 countries and one organization, members signed this convention. Now, let's see about the oil spills, another kind of ocean pollution. This is caused by petroleum. And oil spills can be caused by human error, natural disasters, technical failures, or deliberate releases. It is estimated that 30% to 50% of all oil spills are directly or indirectly caused by human error, with approximately 20 to 40% of oil spills being attributed to equipment failure or malfunction. Causes of oil spills are further distinguished between deliberate releases, such as operational discharges or acts of war, and accidental releases. Accidental oil spills are in the focus of the literature, although some of the largest oil spills ever recorded, the Gulf War oil spill, this is sea-based, and Kuwaiti oil fires, land-based, were deliberate acts of war. And now, let's see, what is petroleum or crude oil? Petroleum is a fossil fuel formed with large quantities of dead organisms, mostly zooplankton and algae, buried underneath sedimentary rock, subjected to both intense heat and pressure. So this is a geophysical study. And it is a naturally occurring yellowish black liquid. It is refined into various types of fuels. And we also have petroleum products as plastics that are made up of refined crude oil. So plastics also are made of petroleum. And more than 4,000 years ago, asphalt was used in the construction of the walls and towers of Babylon. This story is in the Old Testament of the Bible, Old Bible, 4,000 years ago. Now, let's see about the chemical structure of petroleum. Petroleum is a mixture of a very large number of different hydrocarbons. The most commonly found molecules are alkanes, paraffins, cycloalkanes, naphthalene, naphthenes, aromatic hydrocarbons, and asphaltenes. So these are the most commonly found molecules of petroleum. And I'll focus on these alkanes that are widely used in our daily life and for our fuels. The alkanes has the chemical form like this: carbon and the number of carbon, and hydrogen, number plus 2. So in this chemical structure, we have 5 to 40 carbon atoms molecules. And pentane alkanes, we have pentane, nonane alkanes with more than 16 carbon atoms, and alkanes with more than 25 carbon atoms. The pentane is the alkane with this chemical form. C5, carbon 5, hydrogen 12, 2, octane, carbon 8, hydrogen 18. These products are refined into gasoline. We use gasoline for the automobile vehicles, and gasoline is made of this pentane 2-octane. And the alkanes of the type nonane and hexadecane has this form, chemical form, C9H20, and hexadecane, C16H34. These compounds are refined into diesel fuel, kerosene, and jet fuel. Alkanes with more than 16 carbon atoms. They are refined into fuel oil and lubricating oil. And alkanes with more than 25 carbon atoms are refined into paraffin wax. Let's see about the other alkanes. Alkane with more than 35 carbon atoms is refined into asphalt. The asphalt was used by the Babylonians. Alkane with the shortest molecules with less than 4 carbon atoms are gaseous at room temperature. These are called petroleum gases. We have 3 types of petroleum gases. One type is flared off. Second one is sold as liquefied petroleum gas under pressure. And third is used to power the refinery's own burners. So we use as a fuel of our daily life alkanes, the form of the petroleum refined. Now let's see about the oil spill disasters. Oil spill, this oil means or crude oil or petroleum, the same meaning. A huge oil spill in California has killed wildlife and threatened protected sites. On 2020, October. Cleanup was done, but officials had warned on environmental catastrophe. How can we minimize ecological disaster from oil spills? As dead birds and fish began washing up on Ford beaches south of Los Angeles, cleanup teams were scrambling to contain one of California's worst oil spills in decades. A major leak over the weekend from an offshore oil platform owned by Houston-based crude oil producer Amplify Energy Corporation had released up to 126,000 gallons, equivalent to 572,800 liters of heavy crude oil along a 15-mile, 24-kilometer stretch of coastline, threatening a protected marshland and commercial and local fishing industries. So oil spill disasters happens always, almost every year, or every 3 years, or every 5 years. The biggest every 10 years. Let's see about the cause of the disaster. A ship's anchor, which may have hooked and torn an underwater pipeline, is believed to be responsible for the disaster. Investigators have also said the pipeline owner didn't shut down operations and notify authorities for more than 6 hours, further slowing the emergency response. Beaches could remain closed for weeks or even months, warned Huntington Beach Mayor Kim Carr at that time. Officials have deployed more than a mile of protective booms in an effort to contain and slow the oil flows. The United States Coast Guard, which is coordinating the response, said about 4,788 gallons had been recovered as of Tuesday. This is another oil spill accident. This was caused by a Japanese ship on July 25th, 2020, here in Mauritius. Mauritius oil spill by the Wakashiomaru. Wakashiomaru was the name of the ship. You can take a look at this video in this site, Mauritius oil spill wrecked, MV Wakashio breaks up, BBC News. This is in the coast of Africa, east coast of Africa, Madagascar and Mauritius. This is Reunion. So let's see about this Mauritius oil spill. The captain and first officer of a ship that ran aground on coral reef in Mauritius have been found guilty of endangering safe navigation. The captain, Sunil Kumar Nandeshwar, admitted to drinking moderately during a birthday party on board before the motor vessel Wakashio ran aground on about 1,000 tons of fuel oil leaked into the water, sparking an ecological emergency. Mauritius is home to world-renowned coral reefs and popular with tourists. Sunil Kumar Nandeshwar and his first officer, Hitihanilage Subhoda Janendra Tilakaratna, were found guilty under the 2007 Merchant Shipping Act by a court in the capital, Port Louis. Nandeshwar said he had given orders to approach Mauritian waters so that the crew could get phone reception to make calls to their families. It was because of the cell phone. So, a Japanese bulk carrier that has leaked hundreds of thousands of tons of fuel oil off the Mauritius coast has broken apart. The motor vessel Wakashio ran aground on a coral reef on 25th July with 4,000 tons of the fuel, causing an ecological emergency. Most of the fuel had already been pumped out, officials said, but on Saturday, the ship's condition worsened. Mauritius is home to world-renowned coral reefs and popular with tourists. The MV Wakashio ran aground at Point Disney, a known sanctuary for rare wildlife. The area also contains wetlands designated as a site of international importance by the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. So the Japanese company paid for this accident. But once when the Russian ship wrecked on the Japanese coast, the Russian government didn't pay anything. So there are some countries that doesn't have responsibility for that. But we have Marpol Convention, an international law for that kind of accident. And we also have this Ramsar Convention on Wetlands. What is the Ramsar Convention's broad aims? The Convention on Wetlands of international importance holds the unique distinction of being the first modern treaty between nations aimed at conserving natural resources. The signing of the Convention on Wetland took place in 1971 at the small Iranian town of Ramsar. Since then, the Convention on Wetlands has been known as the Ramsar Convention. The Ramsar Convention's broad aims are to halt the worldwide loss of wetlands and to conserve, through wise use and management, those that remain. This requires international cooperation, policymaking, capacity building, and technology transfer. And if the wrecked ship will pollute this part of the wetland, you have to pay for that. That's what the Japanese company did for the wrecked ship of Wakashima in Mauritius. So, about the Convention on Wetlands, Ramsar Convention. The Convention on Wetlands is an intergovernmental treaty that provides the framework for national action and international cooperation for the conservation and wise use of wetlands and their resources. You should take a look at this homepage. Number of contracting parties, number of wetlands of international importance, total surface of designated sites. So there are 172 contracting parties and 2,435 number of wetlands of international importance. And the total surface designated sites are 245,685,425 hectares. Ramsar sites in Japan. We also have some. When Japan became a contracting party to the Ramsar Convention in 1980, Kushiro Shitsugen became Japan's first Ramsar site in Hokkaido, in the northern part of the country. In 1993, Kushiro City hosted the 5th meeting of the Conference of the Contracting Parties COP5 to the Ramsar Convention, greatly raising awareness of the objectives of the Ramsar Convention in Japan and the rest of Asia. Japan has promoted additional designation of wetlands on the occasion of each COP. 2 sites, Shizugawa 1 in Miyagi Prefecture and Kasai Marine Park in Tokyo, were designated as new Ramsar sites at COP13, held in the United Arab Emirates, UAE, in October 2018, counting 52 sites in Japan in total. Ramsar sites in Japan include various types of wetlands, such as marshlands, lakes, rice paddies, seagrass, seaweed beds, tidal flats, mangrove forests, coral reefs, and groundwater systems, reflecting the diversity of Japan's wetland ecosystem. Most Ramsar sites function as important habitats for water birds. And you should take a look at this site also. The Ramsar Convention sets the criteria for identifying wetlands of international importance by the Annex 2 to the Resolution 813 and others. When selecting candidate wetlands for Ramsar sites, Japan sees the following as prerequisites. First, to meet the Convention's criteria for identifying wetlands of international importance. Second, to be designated as national protected areas such as national parks and national wildlife protection areas to ensure that the nature of the sites will be conserved into the future. Third, to gain consent and support of the local governments and other stakeholders. So, back to oil spill now. So many accidents happened these years. This happened in 2019, March 14th. An Italian cargo ship sank in the Atlantic, transporting 45 containers of dangerous materials. The Italian registered ship had also been carrying some 2,200 tons of fuel Because oil normally has a lower density than water, it floats on the surface of the ocean. This means that for cleanup action to be most effective, it should happen very quickly after a spill before the oil disperses. So, French authorities were rushing to stop an oil spill from reaching the country's west coast after this cargo ship sank in the Bay of Biscay in March 2019. Although the government's initial statement only said there had been dangerous materials on board the ill-fated Grande America, local officials told French news agency Agence France Presse that the vessel was leaking oil. The ship had been en route from Hamburg to Casablanca, carrying 2,000 vehicles and 2,200 tons of fuel when a fire broke out. The 26 crew members and single passenger were forced to abandon ship and were rescued by Britain's Royal Navy. This is another accident, Sunken Oil Tanker. How to protect the high seas environment. This is on the environment, all topics from climate change to conservation. You should take a look at this video also. An Iranian oil tanker that sank in the East China Sea prompted fears of damage to marine life. Why do oil spills keep happening and who is responsible when they're in international waters? The Iranian oil tanker Sank caught fire and sank in January 2018 in the East China Sea, 8 days after a collision with a cargo ship due to unclear causes. Its 30 crewmen were missing, with few chances of survival, and fears of environmental harm have spread. The tanker has left 4 oil slicks covering a total of 101 square kilometers, according to the Chinese State Oceanic Administration. China's Ministry of Transport has located the sunken tanker. This is another one that I showed in the first lecture, I think. Explosion of the Deepwater Horizon drilling rig in 2010 caused an environmental disaster. This is also a very interesting, I cannot see interesting. It's a very serious problem. So I suggest that you take a look at this. And oil spill disaster of Deep Horizon exploded on April 20th, 2010 in the Mexico Bay. The accident happened 8 kilometers southeast from the coast of Louisiana. 11 workers of BP company died in that accident. So, damage of the disaster to the ecosystem. With this accident, the sea nearby was affected by the oil spill for months. Whales of the Mexico Bay were almost extinct. In the coastal area of islands of Louisiana, many seabirds were affected by the oil spill and most part of them died. This is the search for crude oil that are causing so many accidents of oil spill. The search for crude oil has become increasingly disparate. As easily accessible sources run dry, more challenging oil springs are being sought out, including ultra-deep wells in the ocean. So the Deepwater Horizon disaster was a terrible example of the environmental devastation that can be caused through deep water drilling. On 20 April 2010, British Petroleum's mobile offshore drilling rig exploded in the Gulf of Mexico, 41 miles off the Louisiana coast. It resulted in a massive offshore oil spill. Until the well could be sealed 5 months later, 780 million liters of crude oil leaked into the Gulf, polluting ocean and coastal ecosystems and killing marine mammals, fish, and seabirds in large numbers. Nearly $1 billion has been invested into scientific research covering the Deepwater Horizon accident and its consequences, coordinated by the Gulf of Mexico Research Initiative. This is a pelican. Even though we might not be able to prevent such accidents in the future, we will be able to have a better response strategy. This way, we will be able to prevent worse next time. When the rig exploded in 2010, it was drilling at a water depth of about 1,500 meters. Nobody knew at that time how the leaking oil would spread and where it would end up, says the chemical engineer Michael Schroeter of the Hamburg University of Technology. Now let's see about another accident of oil spill from Exxon Valdez. 1989, March 24, Long Beach, California, United States. On March 23, 1989, the Exxon Valdez, an oil supertanker operated by Exxon, left the port of Valdez headed for Long Beach, California, with almost 54 million gallons of crude oil on board. Shortly after midnight on March 24, 1989, the supertanker collided with Blight Reef, a well-known navigation hazard, ruptured 8 of its 11 cargo tanks, and spilled 11 million gallons of crude oil into the pristine waters of Prince William Sound. The result was catastrophic. Although the spill was radioed in shortly after the collision, Exxon's response was slow. In fact, there was no recovery effort for 3 days while Exxon searched for cleanup equipment. During that time, millions of gallons of oil began to spread down the coast. Days later, as the cleanup effort began, the oil slick was no longer containable. This is the Exxon Valdez oil spill, eventually extended 470 miles to the southwest, contaminating hundreds of miles of coastline. This is the main accidents of the spill tanker: location, date, tons of crude oil, and barrels. Kuwaiti oil, location, Kuwait, 1991, 136,000 times 1,000. So 136 million tons. Another one, Kuwaiti oil lakes, Kuwait, January 1991 to November 1991. So this amount of crude oil lost. Lakeview Gusher, Kern County, California, US. This is very ancient, 1910. So this amount of crude oil spilled out. Gulf War oil spill in Kuwait, Iraq, 1991. This amount. Deepwater Horizon, Gulf of Mexico, as we saw, 2010, with this amount of crude oil. Exxon, Gulf of Mexico, Mexico, 1979, 454,000 crude oil. Atlantic Empress, Agent Captain, Trinidad and Tobago, 1979, 287,000 tons. Fergana Valley, Uzbekistan, 1992, March, 285,000 tons. Novruz Field, Iran, Persian Gulf, 1983, 260,000 tons. ABT summer, Angola, 700 NMI, 1991, 260,000. Castillo de Belver, South Africa, Saldanha Bay, 1983, spill, 252,000 tons. Amoco, Cadiz, France, Brittany, 1978, 223,000 tons. Pilar Energy, Gulf of Mexico, US, 2004, till now, present. 210 to 490,000 tons. Odyssey, Nova Scotia, off coast, Canada, 1988, 132,000 tons. Torrey Canyon, England, Cornwall. This is a very famous one. March 18, 1967, 119,000 tons. Because of this Torrey Canyon accident, the MAPO was signed. We also have these videos that you can see. Oil spill accident, Torrey Canyon, Exxon Valdez, Deepwater Horizon. So I suggest that you click this and watch them. So we have the marine conservation areas by the United Nations. High seas are often a source of controversy when it comes to protecting marine wildlife and ecosystems. A lack of strong international regulations in waters outside national maritime boundaries, which cover half of the planet's surface, results in many gray areas. While oceans cover over 70% of the Earth's surface, only about 5% of the world's oceans are protected. And very little of these protected zones consists of open ocean, according to the United Nations. At the end of 2017, the United Nations started a process to implement a new rule book by 2020 to establish marine catch quotas and conservation areas among protective measures. So we have this MAPO Convention that also is used for the plastic garbages, but also for the oil spills. In 1967, the tanker Torrey Canyon suffered a big accident in the Sea of England, resulting in a big-scale ocean pollution ever happened. This was a starting point for the amendments of the International Law for the Pollution of the Sea by the oil spills by the International Maritime Organization, IMO, in 1969. In 1973, the MAPO Convention entered into force for stopping the pollution of the seas. So the MAPO Convention is the main international convention covering prevention of pollution of the marine environment by ships from operational or accidental causes. In 1973, the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships was adopted by IMO. And then we have also revised MAPO 73-78. The MAPO Convention sought to eliminate and reduce the amount of garbage being dumped into the sea from ships. Annex 5 totally prohibits the disposal of plastics anywhere into the sea. It also obliges governments to ensure the provision of reception facilities at ports and terminals for the reception of garbage. Shipboard generated garbage according to the MAPO Annex 5. Plastics, synthetic ropes, fishing nets, and so on. Food wastes, spoiled or UNS food substances. Domestic wastes, bottles, papers, and so on. Cooking oil, edible oil, or animal fat. Operational wastes, solid waste slurries, fishing gear for capturing marine organisms, cargo residues, incinerator ashes, and animal carcasses. Procedures of garbage management, garbage minimization, garbage collection, garbage storage, garbage processing, garbage disposal, equipment used, and persons in charge for implementing. And garbage management plan for the MAPO. Every ship of 100 gross tonnage and above, and every ship which is certified to carry 15 or more persons shall carry a garbage management plan based on IMO guidelines MEPC 220-63, and in working language of the crew, containing procedures on these are the procedures of garbage management. In addition, every ship of 400 gross tonnage and above, and every ship which is certified to carry 15 or more persons engaged in voyages to ports which are under the jurisdiction of another party to the convention should maintain a garbage record book in the form specified in the appendix of the revised annex. And also to put the placards in the ships. The declaration should be placed on a placard at least 20.5 centimeter by 20 centimeter, made of durable material and fixed in noticeable and prominent places on board the ship. The placards should be placed in prominent places where crew will be working and living, and in areas where bins are placed for collection of garbage. Placards, continuation. These places include galley space, mess rooms, wardroom, bridge, main deck, and other areas of the ship as appropriate. The placards should be displayed at line of sight height and be printed in the working language of the crew. Where the ship carries passengers, placards should also be placed where passengers are accommodated and meet. So that's all for today. Thank you very much. And please send your comments to megumaruyama@Nagoya University JP if you have the comments, okay? Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for the patience. And let's see on my next lecture, okay? Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye. Stay healthy and stay safe.